The Huffington Post just ran a story titled, "Trump Admits He Found 12-Year-Old Paris Hilton Attractive." The article was based on a Howard Stern interview where Trump said this.
Somebody who a lot of people don't give credit to, but in actuality is really beautiful, is Paris Hilton. Paris Hilton. And I've known Paris Hilton from the time she's 12.
She's hot.
Her parents are friends of mine, and, you know, the first time I saw her, she walked into the room and said, "Who the hell is that?"
Howard Stern specifically asked Trump if he was sexually attracted to Paris Hilton, and Trump replied,
"Well, at 12, I wasn't interested. I've never been into that."
Right.
They've sort of always stuck around that 25 category.
But even at 12, you were kind of wow, she's hot.
I saw at 12 she was beautiful. But honestly, you know, Paris gets knocked and this and that, but she's very beautiful.
So Trump was attracted to 25-year-olds, not to 12-year-olds, although he did admit that years later he watched her sex tape.
Have you seen the video, the sex video?
I have seen it.
You did? What'd you do? You went on the internet?
It was just. How
did you see that? What did you do?
Melania showed it to me.
She did?
She showed it to me.
As far as I can tell, there's nothing here that would suggest that Trump found a 12-year-old Paris Hilton attractive in any sexual way. He specifically says that he wasn't into that sort of thing. But the Huffington Post headline certainly makes it sound like Trump has admitted that he was sexually attracted to a young Paris Hilton. Notice that under the "Trump admits he found 12-year-old Paris Hilton attractive" headline, we have gross. And the article begins, "Your daily dose of ugh vomiting forever comes courtesy of an old Howard Stern interview with Donald Trump." Now, I couldn't conceivably care less about defending Donald Trump, but I do care about consistency. If Huffington Post writers think it's, quote, gross for Donald Trump to say that Paris Hilton was a beautiful 12-year-old girl, why are they always ready to defend Muhammad to the death? They go so far as to call on Christians to accept Muhammad as a prophet. Changing our view of Muhammad so that we recognize him as a true prophet rather than discredit him as a false prophet would effectively inoculate Christians against Islamophobia and would help to establish a new paradigm of cooperative Christian-Muslim relations. But in building their case for Muhammad, they don't seem to care much about his view of little girls. Sahih Muslim 3480. It was narrated that Aisha said, "The Prophet married me when I was 6 years old and consummated the marriage with me when I was 9 years old." Sahih Muslim 3482. It was narrated from Aisha that the Messenger of Allah married her when she was 6 years old and consummated the marriage with her when she was 9 years old, and he died when she was 18 years old. What was Aisha doing when she wasn't busy being raped by her prophet? She was busy washing his never-ending semen stains. Sahih al-Bukhari 230. Narrated Sulaiman bin Yasser. I asked Aisha about the clothes soiled with semen. She replied, "I used to wash it off the clothes of Allah's messenger, and he would go for the salat, prayer, while water spots were still visible." Sahih al-Bukhari 232. Narrated Aisha, "I used to wash the semen off the clothes of the Prophet, and even then I used to notice one or more spots on them." Sahih Muslim 669. It was narrated that Aisha said concerning semen, "I used to scratch it from the garment of the Messenger of Allah." Two side questions for my Muslim viewers. First, why was your Prophet always covered in semen? Aisha's like, yeah, sometimes I would wash it off, sometimes I would scratch it off, and then I would still see more semen on him when he was heading to the mosque to lead the prayers. Do you think that's normal? Do you think normal men have to stop before they walk out the door so their child brides can scrub all the semen off their clothes? Second, why do I have to read stuff like this every time I pick up one of your sources? The early Muslim community was obsessed with sharing information about Muhammad's clothes being covered in semen and Muhammad having sex with 9 women and girls on the same day and Muhammad climbing on top of a 9-year-old girl and forcing his 53-year-old penis inside her. And of course, they had to share this gem. Sahih al-Bukhari 5080. Narrated Jabir bin Abdullah. When I got married, Allah's messenger said to me, "What type of lady have you married?" I replied, "I have married a matron." He said, Why, don't you have a liking for the virgins and for fondling them? Jabir also said, Allah's messenger said, why didn't you marry a young girl so that you might play with her, and she with you? Pretty creepy. Why marry a grown woman when you can marry a little girl and fondle her? Muhammad even thought of marriage when he saw a cute baby. We read in Ibn Ishaq, the apostle saw her, al-Fadl, when she was a baby crawling before him and said, if she grows up and I am still alive, I will marry her. But he died before she grew up. Lucky girl. Keep in mind that when Muhammad says, I'll marry her when she grows up, he means I'll marry her when she turns 6. Now, can you imagine Howard Stern interviewing Muhammad? Muhammad says, you know who's really beautiful? Aisha. She was such a beautiful 6-year-old girl. Howard Stern says,
Did you want to bang her?
Muhammad replies, of course I did. I love little girls. I love fondling them. Why would you waste your time with the 25-year-old women that Donald Trump likes when you can get a little virgin, fondle her, climb on top of her when she turns 9, and make her spend the next 9 years of her life washing all the semen off your clothes before you head to the mosque to pray so that everyone can see how pure and righteous you are? Donald Trump called a 12-year-old Paris Hilton beautiful, but he said that he didn't mean it in any sexual sense. The Huffington Post calls his remarks gross. Muhammad proposed marriage to a baby, had sex with a 9-year-old girl, and was a strong advocate of sexually fondling children. But the Huffington Post has absolutely no problem with this. Instead, they invite us to accept him as a prophet. So why does the Huffington Post have completely different moral standards for Donald Trump and Muhammad? There are different kinds of racists in the world. On the one hand, there are racists who know that they're racists and acknowledge that they're racists. There are people who will openly admit that they believe white people are superior to non-white people. I'm actually less concerned about these kinds of racists because you can see them coming and condemn them. On the other hand, there are racists who won't tell you that they're racists because they don't know that they're racists. You have to discover their racism through their actions and their moral judgments. For instance, you might see them holding Arabs to a much lower moral standard than they hold white Westerners to, because they have lower expectations for Arabs than they have for white Westerners. These racists will turn to a white American and say, how dare you do that? That's disgusting. We condemn you. Then they'll turn to an Arab who's done much worse and say, anything you do is fine because you just don't know any better. If anyone complains about all the atrocities you've committed, don't worry your ignorant little head. We'll just call them bigots to shut them up. Many writers for the Huffington Post are complete, utter, total racists who treat Arabs like perpetual children at best and like subhuman animals at worst. Let's make sure that we never give in to the racism and bigotry of Western journalists, and that we never let a man get away with molesting children simply because he's an Arab.